The champagne flute slipped from Sophie Chen's fingers before she could stop it, crystals shattering against Italian marble in a sound that seemed to echo through the entire ballroom. Time fractured with it. Because there, weaving through Chicago's most powerful elite in a tailored tuxedo that probably cost more than her first car, was the man who had convinced her she was too fragile, too emotional, too much and never enough to deserve success. Marcus Webb. Sophie's lungs constricted. 3 years of therapy, countless affirmations whispered to her reflection, building herself back from the hollow shell he'd left behind, and one glimpse of his practiced smile threatened to unravel it all. A server materialized to handle the shattered glass, but Sophie barely registered the movement. Her fingers found the silk of her ruby gown, pressing hard against her thigh, grounding herself in the present. The Belmont Plaza's grand ballroom glittered around her. 500 of Chicago's most influential figures gathered for the annual Children's Foundation benefit. This was supposed to be her night. After clawing her way back from nothing, she'd finally secured the position of marketing director at Sterling Technologies, the most innovative tech firm in the Midwest. 3 weeks into the role, and she still hadn't encountered the famously elusive founder, Ethan Sterling, a man so private that most employees weren't certain what he actually looked like. "You appear as though you've seen a ghost." The voice belonged to Nina Rodriguez, her colleague and closest friend, who pressed a fresh glass of champagne into Sophie's trembling hand. "Something far worse. Marcus is here." Sophie accepted the glass, though her stomach had turned to stone. 400 guests, and my ex had to be among them. Nina's expression hardened with recognition. Manipulative Marcus? The one who spent 3 years convincing you that ambition was unbecoming in a woman? Sophie's nod was barely perceptible. The very same. And naturally, he's in deep conversation with Harold Chen from our advisory board, probably positioning himself for an interview at Sterling. Meanwhile, you earned your position through pure talent and innovation, Nina said, her voice fierce with loyalty. You look absolutely stunning tonight, by the way. Remind him exactly what he lost. The orchestra transitioned from understated background melodies to something more vibrant, and couples began drifting toward the dance floor like leaves caught in a current. Sophie watched with mounting dread as Marcus excused himself from his conversation, his trajectory unmistakably aimed in her direction. That walk, that confident, entitled stride that once made her heart race, now made her skin crawl. "He's coming this way," she whispered, urgency tightening her throat. "I can't face him tonight, not when I'm trying to establish credibility with the board." Panic clawed at her carefully constructed composure. Their relationship had ended 22 months ago, but his legacy of calculated manipulation still cast shadows across her brightest moments. He possessed an uncanny ability to make her doubt her own reality with nothing more than a disappointed sigh or a subtly raised eyebrow, always in private, always leaving no evidence but the erosion of her self-worth. In desperation, Sophie turned toward the tall figure standing nearby, his attention seemingly absorbed by the crowd with the detached observation of someone accustomed to watching rather than participating. Without overthinking it, without calculating the consequences, she leaned closer to him. "Would you mind dancing with me?" The words tumbled out in a rushed whisper. "My toxic ex is approaching, and I cannot deal with him tonight, please." The stranger turned, and Sophie found herself captured by eyes so gray they resembled storm clouds over Lake Michigan. Surprise flickered across his striking features, angular and refined, before something unreadable replaced it, as he glanced past her shoulder, presumably spotting Marcus closing the distance between them. "It would be my genuine pleasure," he said, his voice carrying a rich timbre that seemed to resonate somewhere beneath her ribs. He set down his untouched scotch and extended his hand with the unhurried confidence of a man who had never been refused anything. "Shall we?" Relief cascaded through Sophie as she placed her hand in his. His grip was firm, assured, warm in a way that felt oddly safe as he guided her onto the dance floor with practiced ease. Just before the crowd enveloped them, she caught Marcus's bewildered expression, confusion cracking his carefully maintained facade, and a small spark of vindication ignited within her chest. "Thank you," she breathed as they reached the floor's center, where crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across moving bodies. "I'm Sophie Chen." Something flickered in his expression, recognition perhaps, or amusement, but he merely smiled, enigmatic and disarming, and placed his hand on her waist with perfect propriety. "You can call me Daniel," he replied, as they began moving to the rhythm, his lead so natural she found herself following without thought. Sophie quickly realized Daniel was an exceptional dancer. He guided her across the polished floor with effortless grace, his movements confident yet organic, never showy. For someone who had just agreed to dance with a complete stranger on a moment's desperate notice, he appeared remarkably composed, as though rescuing women from their exes at charity galas was something he did regularly. "So, tell me about this ex of yours," Daniel said, his tone conversational, almost curious. "What makes him toxic?" I hesitated, suddenly aware of how absurd this situation was. That's hardly appropriate conversation for dancing with a stranger. The corner of his mouth curved upward. "Perhaps not, but I'm genuinely intrigued by the man who sent you seeking refuge with someone you've never met." "When you phrase it that way, it does sound rather melodramatic," she admitted, a genuine laugh escaping despite everything. "Marcus and I were together for nearly 3 years. He's exceptionally charismatic and successful, but he possesses this remarkable talent for making people doubt themselves. By the time I finally ended things, I barely recognized the person staring back at me in the mirror." Daniel's expression darkened subtly. Something cold passed behind those gray eyes. Men like that maintain their power by systematically diminishing others. It allows them to feel superior without actually achieving anything worthy of superiority. "Exactly," Sophie said, genuinely surprised by his immediate insight. "Most people didn't understand unless they'd experienced it themselves. I didn't fully comprehend the extent of the damage until months after we separated. Rebuilding my self-belief took considerable time and effort." "Yet you stand here," Daniel said, his gray eyes meeting hers with unexpected intensity that made her breath catch. "At one of Chicago's most prestigious charity events, looking absolutely radiant, having clearly built something remarkable from the ruins he'd left behind." Sophie felt warmth spread across her cheeks, a blush she couldn't suppress. There was something about this stranger that simultaneously unsettled and comforted her, like standing at the edge of something vast and unknown. "Thank you for the rescue. I don't typically ambush men at charity functions and draft them into elaborate schemes." "I'm profoundly grateful you made an exception this evening," he replied, his smile genuine now, reaching his eyes in a way that transformed his entire face. As they continued dancing, the song transitioning seamlessly into another, Sophie found herself relaxing into his lead, her body responding to his guidance before her mind could process the movements. The anxiety that had gripped her at the sight of Marcus began dissipating like smoke. Daniel proved remarkably easy to converse with, asking thoughtful, probing questions about her work and listening with what appeared to be genuine interest to her responses. He challenged her perspectives thoughtfully, offering insights that revealed a sophisticated understanding of technology and market dynamics. "What brings you to this particular benefit?" he asked, as the song transitioned into something slower, more intimate. She should have excused herself by now. The immediate threat of Marcus had clearly passed. She'd glimpsed him retreating toward the bar with a scowl. Yet she found herself staying, allowing Daniel to draw her incrementally closer, the space between them narrowing with each measure. "I have a significant personal investment in the children's hospital this event supports," he replied, something shifting in his expression, briefly vulnerable before his composure returned. "And yourself?" "I'm here representing Sterling Technologies. I just started as their marketing director," she explained, unable to suppress the pride threading through her voice. "This position represents everything I'd fought to reclaim about myself." Something flickered in his expression, definitely amusement this time, perhaps irony, but he quickly masked it with practiced ease. "That's quite an impressive accomplishment. How are you finding it so far?" "Demanding, intellectually stimulating, occasionally overwhelming," she said honestly. "Though I haven't yet met the elusive Mr. Sterling. Apparently he's something of a ghost in his own company, rarely seen in the office." Daniel chuckled, a rich sound that seemed to vibrate through his chest where her hand rested. "Perhaps he's simply introverted. Not everyone enjoys the spotlight."
A billionaire founder who has built one of the most revolutionary tech companies in the Midwest? I doubt social anxiety is the issue, Sophie replied with a laugh. More likely, he's either completely overwhelmed by the company's growth or he considers himself above the mundane concerns of his employees. The song concluded, and Daniel stepped back slightly, though he maintained his hold on her hand, his thumb brushing almost imperceptibly across her knuckles. "Would you care for a drink?" he offered, his voice carrying a note of something he couldn't quite identify. Sophie glanced around the ballroom with its soaring ceilings and elaborate floral arrangements. Marcus had vanished from sight entirely, and she spotted Nina offering an enthusiastic, not-so-subtle thumbs up from across the room, practically vibrating with curiosity. "I would like that very much," she decided, surprised by how much she meant it. They navigated to a quieter alcove where Daniel procured 2 glasses of champagne from a
Heat crept up her neck in a wave she couldn't suppress, blooming across her cheeks in what she knew must be a visible blush. This was mortification on a scale she'd never experienced. This was career-ending humiliation. When Rebecca finally, mercifully, yielded the floor to her, Sophie forced herself to stand on legs that felt dangerously unstable, like a newborn foal attempting its first steps. "Good morning," she began, her voice emerging remarkably steady despite the chaos in her chest, despite the way her hands trembled slightly as she gripped her presentation remote. "As the newest member of this executive team, I'm genuinely thrilled to share our comprehensive marketing strategy for the Sterling Elite line." Drawing on years of professional training, on every ounce of discipline she'd cultivated, Sophie pushed aside her personal embarrassment and launched into her presentation. She had prepared for this. She knew this material intimately. Slide by slide, she outlined the innovative marketing approach she had meticulously crafted, emphasizing digital transformation, targeted demographic engagement, and authentic brand storytelling. As she spoke, she carefully, deliberately avoided direct eye contact with Ethan, though she could feel his gaze on her like a physical presence, attentive and analytical. "The comprehensive research indicates our target demographic responds powerfully to authentic narratives," she explained, advancing to a slide displaying detailed engagement analytics and consumer behavior patterns. "I propose we strategically transition from our conventional product-centric advertising approach to campaigns that highlight genuine applications, real customer experiences, and meaningful impact. We need to humanize the technology, make it accessible rather than aspirational." "An intriguing approach," Ethan commented, speaking for the first time since her presentation began, his voice cutting through the conference room with quiet authority. Every head turned toward him. "But won't that potentially compromise our premium brand positioning? We've spent years cultivating an image of exclusivity." Sophie finally, inevitably, allowed herself to look at him directly. Nothing in his expression suggested he was recalling their dance or her embarrassing assumptions. His face was professionally neutral, genuinely curious. This was purely business, and somehow that made it easier. "On the contrary, Mr. Sterling," she replied, surprised by the confidence flowing into her voice now that she had found her footing. "Our extensive market research definitively indicates that contemporary premium consumers prioritize authenticity over exclusivity. The landscape has fundamentally shifted. They seek products that genuinely enhance their lived experiences, not merely status indicators that broadcast wealth. Authenticity has become the new luxury." A flicker of approval crossed his face, subtle but unmistakable. "Please continue. I'm finding this perspective quite refreshing." By the time she concluded her presentation 30 minutes later, Sophie had almost forgotten the awkwardness of their previous encounter, lost in the intellectual engagement of defending her strategy. The executive team's response exceeded her expectations. Enthusiastic questions, thoughtful observations, several department heads immediately proposing cross-functional collaborations. Even Rebecca appeared grudgingly impressed, though her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Excellent work, Sophie," Ethan said as she gathered her materials with hands that had finally stopped trembling. "Truly impressive.
I'd like to explore some of these concepts in some greater depth. Are you available this afternoon? Before she could formulate a response, his assistant appeared at the door, like a precisely timed apparition, announcing his next appointment had arrived and was waiting in the lobby. Ethan rose with fluid grace, buttoning his suit jacket. "My office, 4 o'clock sharp," he said to Sophie, not phrasing it as a question, not awaiting her agreement, before he strode from the room with the commanding presence of someone accustomed to immediate compliance. As the meeting dispersed, executives gathering their materials and launching into side conversations, Nina cornered Sophie in the hallway with eyes wide as saucers. Did I just witness Ethan Sterling himself? Ethan Sterling, the man who hasn't attended an executive meeting in over a year, personally request a private meeting with you? Apparently so, Sophie replied, still processing the morning's surreal developments, her mind struggling to integrate the charming stranger from the gala with the commanding CEO from the conference room. Nina lowered her voice to a whisper, leaning in conspiratorially. "And did I detect something between you two? Some kind of charged energy, like he already knows you?" Sophie hesitated, weighing how much to reveal. "Remember the man I danced with at the gala? The one who rescued me from Marcus?" Nina's jaw literally dropped, her mouth forming a perfect O of shock. "You are joking. Please tell me you're joking." "I wish I were. And I may have told him to his actual face that his alter ego, meaning himself, was either completely overwhelmed by his company or too self-important to meet with new employees." "Oh my God, Sophie," Nina whispered, equal parts horror and delighted schadenfreude coloring her expression. "Sophie, you're either incredibly brave or absolutely doomed, possibly both." "Thank you for that reassuring assessment," Sophie said dryly, though anxiety coiled in her stomach. The remainder of the morning dissolved into a blur of emails and conference calls, but Sophie couldn't focus on any of it, her mind continually circling back to the same questions. Why had Ethan Sterling concealed his identity at the gala? What did he hope to gain from the deception? And more perplexing, more unsettling, why had he suddenly appeared at a meeting he typically avoided the first business day after their encounter? At precisely 4 o'clock, Sophie stood outside the imposing double doors of the CEO's office on the building's top floor, a level she'd never had reason to visit before. The entire floor seemed quieter, more refined, the carpet thicker, the art on the walls unmistakably original rather than reproductions. Taking a deep breath that did nothing to calm her racing heart, she knocked. "Enter," called that now familiar voice, no longer safe, no longer belonging to the helpful stranger, but to her boss's boss's boss. Ethan's office was surprisingly understated for a billionaire, which somehow made it more intimidating. Spacious, but not ostentatious, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking panoramic view of Chicago's skyline, the city sprawling beneath them like a kingdom. He stood by the window, jacket removed and sleeves rolled to his elbows, looking more like the Daniel she had met than the formidable Mr. Sterling who'd commanded the conference room, and somehow that made everything more complicated. "Sophie," he said, turning to face him with an expression she couldn't quite read, "please, have a seat. Make yourself comfortable." She settled into one of the butter-soft leather chairs facing his desk, her posture automatically perfect, portfolio positioned precisely on her lap like armor. "I've prepared additional data points and supporting analytics for my proposal," she began, all business, desperate to maintain professional distance. "I think you'll find the demographic breakdowns particularly compelling." "Before we discuss business," Ethan interrupted gently, sitting in the chair beside her rather than behind his desk, eliminating the physical barrier between them, "I believe I owe you a thorough explanation, and probably an apology." Sophie's carefully constructed professional facade faltered, cracks appearing in her composure. "Sir, that's genuinely unnecessary. We can simply move forward." "Ethan, please," he corrected, his voice softer now, "and I respectfully disagree. It is necessary. I wasn't completely forthcoming with you at the gala, and you deserve to understand why." "You told me your name was Daniel," she pointed out, surprising herself with her directness. finding courage in her confusion. "It's my middle name, Ethan Daniel Sterling. If that provides any consolation or mitigating circumstances." "Why the deception, though?" Sophie asked, genuine curiosity overcoming her nervousness, her need to understand trumping professional propriety. Ethan leaned back in his chair, regarding her thoughtfully, as though carefully weighing his words. "When you approached me at the gala, you were seeking help, genuine human assistance. You weren't trying to impress your company's CEO or network your way into advantage. It was utterly refreshing. People treat me fundamentally differently when they know my identity. They become calculated, performative. They show me who they think I want to see, rather than who they actually are. Like Rebecca, practically prostrating herself this morning," Sophie suggested, then immediately regretted her unfiltered candor. "I apologize. That was unprofessional and unkind." To her surprise, Ethan laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his face. "Exactly like that. You, however, told me precisely what you thought of the elusive Mr. Sterling, without any filter or calculation. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" Sophie winced, genuine embarrassment flooding through her. "About those comments, I sincerely apologize. They were inappropriate, presumptuous, and frankly insulting to someone who's built something extraordinary." "They were honest," he corrected, his gray eyes holding hers with disarming intensity, "and not entirely inaccurate. I have been disengaged from daily operations. I've been coasting on systems my father established, avoiding the hard work of actually leading, something I'm genuinely attempting to rectify." An uncomfortable silence settled between them, weighted with unspoken questions. Sophie couldn't help but wonder if her candid remarks at the gala had prompted his sudden interest in company operations, if she had inadvertently triggered some kind of professional crisis. "Regarding your marketing proposal," Ethan said, abruptly shifting topics with the decisiveness of someone accustomed to controlling conversations, "I think you're onto something genuinely innovative with the authentic storytelling approach, but I have significant implementation concerns, particularly around execution and resource allocation." For the next 70 minutes, they discussed her marketing strategy in meticulous depth. To Sophie's genuine surprise, Ethan proved not only remarkably knowledgeable, but authentically interested in her ideas, engaging with them seriously rather than dismissively. He challenged her assumptions with penetrating questions, pressed for clarification on specific implementation details, played devil's advocate with sophisticated counterarguments, but also acknowledged the genuine strengths of her approach with what seemed like sincere admiration. It was the most intellectually stimulating, professionally engaging conversation she'd had in years, perhaps ever. He treated her like an equal, like her insights mattered, like her perspective had genuine value. As their meeting wound down, as the afternoon light shifted across the skyline beyond the windows, Ethan stood, signaling its conclusion with practiced efficiency. "I'm genuinely impressed, Sophie. Rebecca made an excellent choice bringing you aboard. Your perspective is exactly what this company needs." "Thank you," she replied, gathering her materials with hands that had steadied considerably. She hesitated at the door, then turned back, emboldened by the afternoon's unexpected rapport. "May I ask you something personal?" He nodded, curiosity evident in his expression, giving her his complete attention. "Was it purely a coincidence that you appeared at the executive meeting the first business day after the gala? Or was there some connection?" A slow, genuinely amused smile spread across his face, reaching his eyes in a way that made him seem younger, more approachable. "What do you think, Sophie?" Before she could formulate a response, before she could process what his non-answer might mean, his phone buzzed insistently on the desk. He glanced at the screen, then back at her with what might have been regret. "We'll continue this discussion tomorrow. My office, same time. I'm looking forward to it." Sophie left with more questions than answers, her mind spinning with possibilities. But one thing crystallized with absolute certainty: Ethan Sterling was nothing like she had expected, nothing like the distant, perhaps arrogant CEO she had imagined. He was more perceptive, more engaged, more genuinely interested in building something meaningful than simply maintaining an empire, and far more intriguing than any man had a right to be. What she didn't know, couldn't possibly know, was that as she rode the elevator down to her floor, as she checked her phone and responded to messages, Ethan was canceling every single one of his afternoon appointments to thoroughly review her complete employee file, reading every performance review, every recommendation letter, tracing her entire career trajectory with obsessive attention to detail. What she also didn't know was that Marcus Webb had applied for a senior position at Sterling Technologies 4 days earlier, the interview scheduled for the following week. The timing so convenient, it couldn't possibly be a coincidence. And Ethan Sterling absolutely did not believe in coincidences. Over the following 3 weeks, Sophie's meetings with Ethan evolved from daily occurrences into something that began to feel essential, necessary, like breathing. What had originated as focused discussions about her marketing strategy gradually expanded into broader, more ambitious conversations about the company's entire strategic direction, its mission, its potential impact on the technology landscape. To Sophie's continued surprise, Ethan genuinely valued her outsider perspective, her fresh eyes unburdened with "we've always done it this way" thinking. He solicited her opinions on matters far beyond marketing, treating their insights with the seriousness usually reserved for senior executives with decades of experience. He was nothing like the aloof CEO he had imagined, and perhaps more significantly, he was absolutely nothing like Marcus. "Your proposal for the European expansion is fundamentally solid," Ethan said one afternoon, reviewing the extensive documents she had prepared with meticulous attention, making notes on the margins. They had settled into a comfortable routine, meeting in his office, where they could speak candidly without the performative dynamics that infected conference rooms, without colleagues monitoring every word and gesture. "I'm genuinely concerned about the timeline, particularly for the German and French markets. The regulatory environment is significantly more complex than you're accounting for," I noted, already making notes on her tablet. "I've been considering the same complications. What if we implemented a carefully phased launch? United Kingdom first, leveraging existing relationships and language advantages, then Western Europe 4 months later after we've refined our approach and built credibility." Ethan considered this, tapping his pen against the desk in a rhythm that Sophie had come to recognize as his thinking pattern. That could definitely work. The UK market would give us valuable learnings before the more challenging territories. Prepare a revised timeline with detailed milestones for tomorrow morning. "Already working on it," she replied with a smile.